I stand here before you a little depressed that I have a career. I talk about really basic stuff, like what it means to be human and the ideas of being good to each other. And the fact that there is demand for the things that I say is kind of depressing. I should be out of work. What it means is that the world we're currently living is missing these things. It means that there's demand for my work because we don't experience these things on a daily basis. The things I talk about are my own journey, my own struggles. And I got to meet a lot of people along the way in my career, some of those people in the military. And I would notice things that were different about them than about the people that I would meet in private sector. There was one guy I met a few years ago from the United States Air Force. He drives the A-10. The A-10 is a low-flying, heavily armored, slow-flying aircraft designed to provide ground support for troops on the top cover for troops on the ground. And it was August 16th, 2002, and on this day, Johnny Bravo, his call sign, he and his wingman were flying high above the clouds, above a valley in Afghanistan. There was a team down below in the valley, 22 Special Operations Forces making their way through the valley, trying to extract what the government likes to call a high-value target. Johnny Bravo and his wingman were in contact with them over the radio, and he could sense that they were nervous. He could sense that something bad was going to happen. And so Johnny Bravo tells his wingman, hang out up here, I'm going to go down and see what's going on. And just as he reaches the clouds, a call comes over the radio. Troops in contact. Troops in contact is what they say when they come under effective fire. Now there was no question Johnny Bravo had to get down there. His plane is thrashed about as it makes its way through the heavy cloud cover. And when he finally pops out beneath the cloud, he's less than 1,000 feet off the ground, just a few hundred feet off the ground, flying in a valley that is 1.5 miles at its widest point, flying at 400 miles an hour, wearing night vision goggles. And the scene that greets him is something that he's never seen in training and never seen in the movies. Tracer fire coming from both sides of the valley, so bright it lights up the whole valley. He doesn't even know where to begin, so he just picks a point on the side of a mountain and starts to lay down cover. It's only 2002, and so the plane is not yet equipped with ground-hugging radar. All he has was an old Russian map. And so he does some quick calculations in his head. He knows his speed, he knows his distance, and he literally counts out loud to avoid hitting the side of the mountain as he lays down cover. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. Pulls hard on the stick, comes back into the clouds, pulls a high G turn, and comes around again for another run. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. And again, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. Fuel is good, but he runs out of ammunition. So he flies back to the top of the clouds, and he tells his wingman, you need to get back down there. The two of them fly back into the clouds, fly in the valley, 3 feet apart from each other, wing to wing. Johnny Bravo counts, and his wingman lays down cover. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. That night, 22 Americans went home alive with 0 casualties. I got to meet Johnny Bravo. As I said. He's a pretty down-to-earth guy, humble, not looking for a promotion or a raise, not looking for a reality TV show, just doing his job, as he puts it. And I asked him, why would you do that? You've got a wife, you've got kids. The conditions were such that they should have been unflyable. Nobody would have faulted you if you didn't go down into the valley. Why did you do it? And he gave me the same answer that people that we call heroes all give, because they would have done it for me. In the military, they give medals to people who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In business, we give bonuses to people who are willing to sacrifice others so that we may gain. And it occurs to me How is it that here are these remarkable human beings who are willing to sacrifice their lives for sometimes people they don't even like? We don't even like to give up credit for things. Now, my initial thought was, where do these people come from? They just must be better people. And they're attracted to the military because of the notion of service or something like that. And the more I started to learn and the more people I started to meet, the more I realized it wasn't the people, it was the environment. Every single one of us has the capacity to have someone by our side that's willing to sacrifice themselves for us. And by the way, we all have that capacity too. We are social animals. Our behavior is governed by the conditions in which we live or work. You can take a good person and put them in a bad environment and they are capable of bad things. You can take someone whose society has given up on and put them in a good environment and they are capable of remarkable things. And it's this environment that leadership matters because leaders set the tone. We're social animals, like I said. We live and work together by ourselves. We're useless. We're not very strong. We can't solve complex problems by ourselves, but in groups, we are remarkable. Anybody who ever achieved anything of note or value in this world did not do it alone. There was a team of believers, somebody who recommended you, put their reputation on the line, somebody who sacrificed, somebody who stayed late with you, somebody who believed in you. There's always a group of us. But the question is, why should anybody help you? Why should anybody sacrifice for you? And it all goes to this idea of existing and working in what I like to call a circle of safety. You see, the world is filled with danger, the ups and downs of the stock market, the uncertainty of the economy, a new technology that might render your business model obsolete overnight, your competition that's sometimes trying to kill you, sometimes trying to put you out of business. These things are a constant. We have no control over these things. The only thing over which we have control is the environment inside the organization. This is the only variable, and this is where leadership matters. Leaders are the ones who are willing to sacrifice themselves for their people. The closest analogy I can give is like parenting. There's this amazing photograph taken by a man by the name of Taylor Hicks, not the same Taylor Hicks as American Idol. Do you remember some time ago there were those shootings in the shopping mall in Kenya? And the photographer, Taylor Hicks, happened to be in the mall when it happened. And so we had these remarkable photographs from within the scene rather than what we usually get, which is the aftermath. And there's one photograph that he took that was posted in the New York Times. And every time I see it, it both haunts me and excites me and inspires me. It's a mother lying on top of her child. Think about that for a second. At the sound of a gun, at the sound of violence, it's a mother's instinct, it's a mother's inclination to throw herself on top of her child. This is what it means to lead. Of course, on any normal day, the mother is in charge, the leader's in charge, they have rank, they have authority. Because I said so, because I'm your mother, that's why you will do that. We hear that all the time. But when danger threatens, it's the leader's instinct to cover their people. It's the leader's instinct to sacrifice themselves so their people may gain. A leader would never sacrifice their people to save the numbers. A leader would sacrifice the numbers to save the people. This whole idea of using mass layoffs to balance the books is a relatively recent event. It only began in the early 1980s. Prior to that, the idea of using mass layoffs to balance the books was never the first line of defense like it is today. It's become so normal we almost expect it. Think about that for a second. I'm going to send you home to tell your spouse that you no longer have an income. You have to tell your children that there is no more money coming in because the company had to balance their books this year. Forget about the people who lost their jobs. What about the people who kept their jobs? How do you think they feel coming back to work the next day and the next day? Is that a circle of safety? Do you think those people feel safe knowing that simply because the numbers don't match, they could be out of a job the next day? And what ends up happening is we react to the environment we're in. We become selfish, we become paranoid, we become mistrustful, we become self-interested. Any organization in which people feel they have to send a CYA email, do so because they don't trust the people with whom they work. In other words, they have to create their own level of protection. There's a company in St. Louis called Barry Waymiller. It's run by a remarkable man named Bob Chapman. And in 2008, they suffered like so many other companies suffered, and their business dropped. It's about $1.7 billion manufacturing business, good old-fashioned American blue-collar manufacturing. And after 2008, they lost 30% of their sales almost overnight. And for the first time in a long time, they could no longer afford their labor pool. They needed to save $10 million. And somebody raised the question, do we have to have layoffs? And Bob refused. You see, Bob doesn't believe in head counts and reducing head counts. Bob believes in heart counts. And it's much more difficult to reduce a heart count. And so the plan they implemented was a furlough program, that every employee from CEO to secretary would have to take 4 weeks of unpaid vacation. They did not have to take it consecutively, and they could take it whenever they wanted. But it was how Bob announced the program that was most important. He said, it's better we should all suffer a little than any of us should have to suffer a lot. And morale went up. In fact, strange behavior started to happen that they didn't expect. Those who could afford it more started trading with those who could afford it less. Someone would take 5 weeks so that somebody else only had to take 3 weeks. They ended up saving $20 million. And at the end of it, morale was so high, people were completely devoted to this organization. They would give their blood, sweat, and tears for the very simple fact that they knew that the company would sacrifice for them. This is what leadership means. And the response is always the same. This is why we call someone a leader, because they go first. I listen to all the same talks and read the same books as everyone else. You know, what are the characteristics you need to be a leader? Vision, charisma. Does that mean if you don't have a grand vision of the world, you can't be a leader? Does it mean that if you don't have huge amounts of charisma, you can't be a leader? Of course not. Of course not. What I found is there's really only one significant characteristic any leader has to have to truly be a leader: courage. You see, leadership is a risk. Leadership is incredibly hard work. Just like being a bachelor or being single is a much better life. Think about it. Having kids is a hard life, right? You're not gonna have the same house. You have to get a different house, a smaller house maybe, different kinds of vacations. You can't buy the car you want. You have to buy the car you have to have. You get less sleep. The point is there's certain sacrifices we make when we have children. And we willingly make these sacrifices because there's some sort of feeling to watch a child grow up and make something of themselves. And if you ask someone, what does it mean to be a great parent? It's all the same. I want to provide them opportunity, give them an education, discipline them when necessary, all so that they can grow up and make something of themselves, maybe even make more of themselves than I could have ever made for myself. Leaders are exactly the same. Leaders want to see their people grow up, have opportunity, get an education, and maybe make something more of themselves than they could ever for themselves, make more for others than they ever could for themselves. And that satisfaction we get of seeing someone grow is remarkable. It's the feeling of leadership. It's just like being a parent. It's taking care of others. In the Marine Corps, they have a tradition. Officers eat last. And if you go to any Marine Corps chow hall anywhere in the world, you will see it. Chow time, they line up in rank order. The most junior person eats first, and the most senior person eats last. It's not in any rule book, and no one tells them they have to. It's because of the way they view the concept of leadership. They view it as a responsibility and not a rank. In business, we tell entrepreneurs, pay yourself first. You see, something happens when we pay ourselves first. Everyone knows that we're putting ourselves before them. What kind of loyalty will that command? In the Marine Corps, they know that their officers would always eat last, which says something to the people. I was told a true story about a group of Marines that were downrange. And as was the tradition, at chow time, this officer ate last. And on this particular day, there was no more food left for him. And so they went out into the field, and all of his men brought him some of their food. You see, that's the remarkable thing. When we are willing to eat last, when we're willing to put the well-being of others before ourselves, they will always give and sacrifice for us. Officers never go hungry. It's exactly the same. The problem is leadership is just like exercise. Parenting is just like exercise. You cannot measure it on a daily basis. I could give you a compelling argument as to why you should go to the gym and the importance of exercise. And you'll go to the gym and you'll come back and you'll look in the mirror and you will see nothing. And you'll go to the gym the next day and you'll come back and you'll look in the mirror and you will see nothing. And worse, you're in pain. And so we give up. We stop going because we can't see the benefit and it hurts. Leadership is exactly the same. We cannot measure it in discrete small packets. We cannot measure it on a daily basis. Just like we can't measure how good a parent we are on a daily basis. Because I can promise you if we did that, on many days we would be very bad. And leadership is the same. And like exercise, we cannot see the impact on a daily basis. But if you look at a photograph of yourself from 3 months prior, it's easy to see the benefit of the exercise. It's easy to see a well-led organization and a poorly led organization over time. The problem is, the things that are easy to measure, revenue, market share, profits, these things can be measured on a daily basis. And because we can see the results on a daily basis, we put all of our attention into these things and we sacrifice the good leadership. And then when bad things happen, when there's struggle, when the economy hits the dip, when one of these dangers from the outside threatens us, now where's the crew? Where's the team? How come they're not all rallying together? Again, we're social animals. We respond to the environment we're in. And when we believe our leaders would sacrifice for us, in return, we give them our blood, our sweat, and tears, all to see their vision realized and to keep them safe as well. Leadership is not a rank. It's a choice. I know many people who sit at the highest levels of organizations, and though they have authority, they are not leaders. We do as they say because they have authority over us, but we would not follow them. I know many people who sit at the bottom of an organization, and though they have no authority, they absolutely are leaders because they've made a choice. The choice to look after the person to the left of them, and the choice to look after the person to the right of them. Leadership is a practice. It's not an event, a big reorg, or an offsite, or one big decision when it's hard doesn't make us a leader. It is a daily experience. And it's the practice of putting the well-being of others sometimes before ourselves. Like going to the coffee machine, and you're the last one to take a cup of coffee. What do you do with the empty pot? Do you put it back? No one will know that it was you. You could just go back to your desk. No one will have any idea. Or do you make a new pot of coffee even though no one will be there to give you the reward? When you're standing in the elevator and you see somebody rushing for the elevator just as the doors are closing, do you reach for the button or do you go like this? I'm running, sorry, good. That's the practice of leadership. It's these daily little things where we practice putting the well-being of others before ourselves. And so then the days that it really matters, when we really do have to make a real sacrifice for someone else, it's much easier. The whole idea is to give all of the people in the organization the opportunity to be the leaders they wish they had. That's all any of us want. We want to come to work and feel that our lives and our work have value. And so the more authority we are given to look after the person to the left of us and look after the person to the right of us has a magnificent effect on the organization. I was witness to a remarkable scene. I was taking a flight and we were boarding the plane and someone tried to get on the plane before it was their number. And the gate agent very rudely said, "Sir, you must wait." And really aggressively brushed him aside. And so I said something. I said, "Why can't you treat us like human beings? Why do you have to be so aggressive?" And she literally said to me, "Sir, if I don't follow the rules, I could get in trouble or lose my job." All she told me is that she doesn't feel safe at work. All she told me is that her leaders don't trust her, and so she doesn't trust her leaders. This is why we like flying Southwest Airlines. Do you know why they treat us nicely? It's not simply because they hire friendly people. It's not that the other airline only hires horrible people. It's the environment. It's because these people fundamentally trust their leaders. They don't fear their leaders. And the result is we benefit because they get to make the choice to look after us. When we fear the people with whom we work, we have no choice but to spend our own time and energy to protect ourselves from them, to look after ourselves. Ours is a world, unfortunately, that is lacking in great leaders today. I used to think Congress was the source of all of our problems in America. I don't think that anymore. I think that Congress is a mirror to us. We're the polarized ones. We're the divided ones. We're the ones who won't listen. We're the closed-minded ones. We're the ones who fight. And we're the ones who all we're preoccupied is about winning and taking for ourselves rather than advancing the organization or the nation itself. The reason we have a Congress with 9% approval rating is because we're the ones who can't get along. And just as it's irresponsible for anyone who works in a company to simply go like this and say, I have bad leadership, what do you want me to do? We can't simply fold our arms and say, our government can't make it happen, we need to get new people, what are we going to do? It's us. We're the ones who have to show them. We're the ones who have to set the example. Thank you. One voter. It starts with the truth. At the end of the day, all the things that we need to lead, the most significant one is telling the truth. I'll tell you another Marine Corps story. I happened to be visiting Quantico Marine Base in Quantico, Virginia. This is Marine Corps OCS, where the Marines select their officers. And on this particular day, there was an incident. And I showed up to get a briefing from the colonel who runs OCS, and he walks in and apologizes for being late. He says, I'm terribly sorry, we've had an incident, and we're thinking of throwing one of our Marines out of the Marine Corps. And I'm thinking to myself, what did he do? What law did he break? So I said, what did he do? And the colonel said, he fell asleep on watch. And I said, that's it? He fell asleep on watch in Virginia. Not in combat, in the woods of Virginia. So I'm like, you guys are really tough. He says, no, you don't understand. When we asked him about it, he denied it. When we asked him about it again, he denied it again. And only when we gave him irrefutable proof did he say, I'd like to take responsibility for my actions. The problems we have is you take responsibility for your actions at the time you perform your actions, not at the time you get caught. We had another Marine who fell asleep. He took responsibility for it. We punished him. We have no issue with him. He said, you have to understand, I cannot put this Marine in a leadership position. I cannot put him in a position where he's responsible for the lives of other Marines, because if they think for 1 minute that he's saying anything to make himself look better, if he's saying anything to sort of change the environment or self-promote himself, trust will break down and people will die. And this is exactly the same for us. Though we do not face life and death situations on a daily basis, our minds interpret all of the information that is given to us in terms of life and death. All we want to do is feel safe around the people with whom we work. We don't want to fear them. This is what work-life balance means. It has nothing to do with the amount of yoga we do. What it means is I feel safe at home, but I don't feel safe at work. This is the imbalance. And so what do we do about it? It's our responsibility. Like I said, leadership is a choice. The choice to look after the person to the left of you and the choice to look after the person to the right of you. And if you make your way up through the hierarchy, all that means is you are responsible for more people. Just like a parent is no longer responsible for their own lives, they're now responsible for the family, their spouse, and the children, and that comes at sacrifice of time and energy. So too is it that we must make that sacrifice, that we must be the leaders we wish we had. And something remarkable can happen. You see people who love coming to work, and people who care about each other, and people who are worried about the well-being and the success of each other. They work together, we solve problems together, we innovate. Profits go up, progress goes up, and most importantly, we all go home every single day feeling great about the job we just did and feeling great about going to work. And when something bad happens, and someone's there who steps in to protect you and to look after you and make sure that you're kept safe, if we were to ask them, why would you do that? They would all say the same thing, because you would have done it for them. And isn't that the kind of world we want to live in? Thank you very much. Thank you.